Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. As you know from watching some of my previous videos, I'm a big fan of using lighter tackle than a lot of folks use here in the Great Lakes. I think for some types of species of fish, we tend to overshoot the size of the baits we use, which certainly will still attract a large, very large fish, but a lot of the smaller baits do as well. So in this video, I'm going to go over some tips on how to catch big fish on small tackle. And at the end of the video, you'll see me land a very large, 10, 11 pound channel catfish using just 4 pound test fluorocarbon leader. So stick around. So real quickly, before we get into these tips, I just want to go over the tackle I'm using today. I'm using the B&M Sharpshooter 6. It's a dock shooting rod that I use as sort of a lighter type tackle rod. It's not ultralight, but it's a lighter rod, lighter action rod. Paired that up with a Field & Stream spinning reel, spooled up with 6 pound high vis line, and then I'm using a few feet of fluorocarbon, 4 pound test fluorocarbon leader at the end. So with that, let's get into these tips. So the first tip I have is to make sure you're using a reel that has a pretty good drag system on it. The drag is really important when you're using very light tackle. You want to make sure that when the fish surges, that drag kind of eases into the restrictions that it provides, and it's not going to allow the tension to sort of spike before it finally does its job. And this spinning reel from Field & Stream that I got, you experiment. Obviously, you buy different spinning reels, try all kinds of different ones, but this thing is really a good reel. I'll put a link in the description to the one I have, or one similar to it. I bought this several years ago, but it's a really good performing reel when it comes to its drag performance. There's all kinds of reels out there, obviously, so just make sure you have a spinning reel with a good drag, and you should be good to go.
Beautiful fish.
So tip number 2 is to keep a loose arm and wrist when you're fighting these bigger fish on this light tackle. You almost need to think of your arm and your wrist as an extension of the fishing rod itself. As the tension in the line increases and the rod continues to bend over, eventually the rod reaches its limit of how much it will bend before that tension really starts to go up in the fishing line. So by using your arm and wrist as an extension of that pole, you're effectively delaying the point at which the tension in that line starts to go up. And then, of course, the last sort of backstop to the line breaking is your reel, which is why that was tip number 3 and why that's so important, to make sure that you use a drag that works really well and kind of eases into its working range, because all it takes is that quick spike of tension before the drag starts to break loose a little bit to snap the line, and we don't want that. But using your arm and wrist as an extension of the fishing rod keeps us away from the reel having to work so hard, and allows us to fight the fish. Most fish, when they surge, they quickly run out of energy. So that's why they'll surge a little bit, but then they'll ease up because they're burning that energy in their cells, and then they need a recovery period before they can go at it again. So to the degree that you can use your arm and your wrist through that surge to allow the fish to burn up its energy, then as it eases up, you can make up some ground and reel some line back in. And that's what fighting a fish is really all about. So the last tip I have here, and by far the most important one, is to be patient. When you're fighting big fish on small tackle, there can be a desire to want to, get that fish in. It's almost like a panic you go through. Like, I got to get this fish in. I got to get this fish in. But when you're fighting them on real light tackle, you just have to force yourself to be patient. And as you catch a couple of fish that way, you'll gain confidence in the process, and then you won't be as anxious or excited when the fish is on to get them in the boat so fast. I think this next clip really illustrates that. This was a large catfish that I hooked in the back of this marina, and as you'll see, it took me quite a long time to get it in, but I eventually did. And, it went between 10 and 11 pounds. It was about a 30-inch long channel catfish. And it just illustrates the importance of patience when you're trying to land these big fish. So as you can see, this fish took me, a little shy of 15 minutes to get into the boat. But the patience was the key. If I didn't have that kind of patience, that fish would have broke off a long time ago. But once I hooked it, I really wanted to see what it was, and I was determined to get it in. And I'm always looking for master angler opportunities, and this one came just shy. It was just shy of 30 inches, which in Michigan is the minimum requirement for a channel catfish. But just goes to show that patience pays off, as always, in fishing. And I hope this video was helpful to you and helps you catch some big fish when you're using light tackle in the future.